said there's a great difference between having influence and having power. Influence is what you have as the editor of the largest newspaper in Colombia. You'll have a tremendous influence. But power is different. Power, you can change things. You can really make things different. You have to choose. To make peace, you have to lead in a different way. You have to change the minds of the people, their sentiments, their prejudice, their feelings. To tell a victim whose mother or daughter has been raped or killed, to forgive is very difficult. Many simply won't accept it. So making peace, you need to be more persistent, and it takes a longer time. We're just starting to reconcile the Colombians.
So many of the other social issues, the peace issue and drugs, for example, tend to dominate the discussion about Colombia, but what you've been trying to do in a social agenda on poverty alleviation and education and so forth is, I know, something you want to try to complete in your last year.
I say that the peace agreement ends the armed conflict. Now the tough work starts. It's the construction of peace. That's going to take a long time. That has to do with social issues. And we have been trying to start the construction of peace since we started the government.
But I really want to point out that this was not about just creating a great brand campaign. We were really looking for a brand ethos that would actually inform everything that Samsung did, starting from the product all the way through to the marketing. Because when you have something like that, you have something that's bigger than a marketing campaign. But I think it's also really crucial that the brand ethos that you settle on is truly true to the brand DNA or the company's DNA philosophy, because if it is inauthentic to that, it will get rejected.
You know, we started to unearth a voice in the most unlikely place, in the most sort of mundane place, in the place where the brand's ambition intersects with the customer's ambition, and that is search copy. I'm setting you up for clapping. And one of our more junior copywriters actually found a perfect tone in that place. So if you ask how to transfer from iPhone to Samsung in a search, funny you should ask. Samsung Smartwatch, la-da-da-da. So you can see there's a voice that's emerging in this place where you actually have a conversation with the brand. That's also true of social. You could still call your ex, you shouldn't, but you could switch to Galaxy, easily keep your contacts. So in a place where you spend a lot of your time speaking to friends, you know, the brand should actually sound more like a friend.
The last time I checked, business people had feelings too, which means they have emotions. So we had to be more emotional in our B2B story. After all, B2B doesn't have to be B2 boring, and it certainly doesn't have to be Sunday morning TV.
Next word is right, and it's the ability to ask radical questions, to dream and to fight for your dreams. It is a skill. It is an act of radical nonviolence that we have been losing, but we have to reclaim it as soon as possible. It is the key to find to fight for any meaningful vision of humankind and state of affairs in our globe. And the last word is pussy. And it is something that everybody wants, but nobody is going to get without riot.
What advice do you have to those of us not in Russia about what to watch for, things we should do and things we shouldn't do?
Check the facts. Don't start censoring yourself, because this is what happens a lot in Russia and in many other countries, I guess, as well. Some journalists are afraid to say things that they're explicitly not forbidden to say, but they're so scared of some possible persecution that they're thinking ahead, and that's something you should watch out for.
And also, you know, people should definitely keep a cold hand, because what we laugh often from Russia when we see all these news about how American media often tries to portray that basically Putin is running the United States these days. Mm-hmm. And well, it's although it's probably very flattering to Putin, it's definitely not the case. And so when you try to...
He didn't swing our election?
Well, we think he wanted to, and he probably did in a bit, but definitely in the eyes of the American media and the American public now, he's basically running the country and choosing the next American president. So that's not exactly the case, and basically it's very important to try as hard as you can to like realistically to see various sides and understand what's happening, and not just jump into like cold-blooded accusations that are often used by the media.
So as someone who comes from the entertainment world, first of all, how are you feeling about all this? And how can brands learn from what entertainment's doing?
I'm excited by it. I think to me, but I think I don't just get excited by there being people of color on the screen. I mean, to me, it's more about the movies and the TV shows actually having substance and being good, for lack of a more complicated word. It's like Moonlight winning Best Picture helps move the culture forward. But also, some movies with predominantly African-American cast doing well at the box office is also helpful. But what I'm concerned about is the material really having a lasting impact. That's what I want. I want the stuff to be actually fantastic and to help mentor writers of color to be able to tell their stories in the best possible way. And it's not just about putting black faces on screens, because then they're still profiting off of our culture. And so that, to me, it's like, I'm looking forward to the long game, which is us owning actually networks that we're performing on, because otherwise we're still sort of, the culture is still being leased for someone else to profit. We make a little bit of it, the profit, but the people up top make the most.
So, as I mentioned, the All of Us Equal series that I created, after it had gone viral, a bunch of the top execs at Marriott had seen the work, and they were considering doing something for Pride. And I was called in by an agency. I didn't know who the client was, and they just said, "Oh, we may have a project for you. Let's just chat." And so I went into the meeting, probably 10, 15 people there. Half of them were the agency, half of them were the client. And I was talking to them for about a half an hour before I even knew who it was. And I think they just wanted to really understand where I was coming from when I created All of Us Equal. And it was being tested. It wasn't being interviewed. It was like, what is this? What was the reason that you created that type of imagery? And I think because they really saw the heart in it, they said, all right, well, first of all, we're Marriott International, which is now the largest hotel group in the world. And we want to have you extend that project that you shot with our brand in mind. And for my own series, for a plethora of reasons, they weren't, the subjects weren't all necessarily real gay couples, but for Marriott, they wanted that. And they wanted that authenticity, and I think they really wanted a gay photographer to direct and shoot all of the content. And I think it does make a difference. I think, I see from my perspective that the romance that I feel with my partner is not really any different from the romance that straight people have experienced with themselves. And when I'm directing my subjects, it really, I know what it feels like, I know what it looks like to just be comfortable and in love and happen to be in love with someone of the same sex.
You need to try. You have to try.
I think
and you might get it wrong, and if you get it wrong, you admit that you get it wrong and you try again and you try to do better.
I think that's such an interesting point, because I think, in my experience, what tends to keep people from not entering this space is they mean so well that they're paralyzed because they're so afraid they're going to get it wrong, and then they do nothing.